Episode 11, Grandma Eleanor.
Welcome to USA, Myths and Legends, the podcast where we delve into the chilling tales and forgotten lore that haunt every corner of our nation. Today we journey to the picturesque, yet unsettling state of Maine. Gather round, folks, because the story I'm about to tell you isn't about a mythical beast or a lurking ghost, but about a monster far more real, one who disguised herself with kindness and goodness to hide the darkness she carried inside. It's the story of Grandma Eleanor, a name that in this quiet town in Maine still sends a shiver down your spine, even after all these years. Oakhaven is a small town, so quiet you'd think that evil couldn't possibly take root here. Yet Eleanor was an institution, a woman in her late 70s with white hair tied in a perfect bun, a wool sweater always on, and hands that always seemed to be busy doing something, knitting, baking gingerbread cookies, or giving out hugs. She was, by all accounts, the most beloved widow in town. When an elderly man was left alone, she was the first to show up at his door with a homemade apple pie and a smile that promised comfort and companionship. The men of the town, mostly widowers or bachelors, called her the town's grandma, and she had earned the title through years of seemingly selfless devotion. But in 1985, things started to change. A subtle shift, almost imperceptible at first, but one that would soon cast a long shadow over Oakhaven. The first to disappear was Mr. Gable, an old hermit who lived in a secluded cabin by the lake. A week went by, and when concerned neighbors finally went to look for him, the cabin was spotless, as if he had simply packed up and left without a word. Only his wool cap was missing. Days later, Eleanor, with a curious stroke of fortune, found it on the path leading to her own house. She promptly gave it to the police with a look of profound sadness, her eyes conveying a sorrow that seemed to echo the town's concern. The townspeople, touched by her honesty and civic duty, praised her. Then Mr. Henderson disappeared, the owner of the antique shop, a kind man who lived alone and was known for his large collection of intricate old clocks. His shop was found locked, his house eerily empty. The only clue left behind was his wallet, which showed up in a thorny bush behind Eleanor's house. She handed it over to the authorities, visibly distressed, her hands trembling as she explained her discovery. The praise for her multiplied. "What a decent woman," they whispered. "Always so thoughtful, always looking out for her neighbors." The macabre dance continued like this, a chilling rhythm of vanishing men and convenient discoveries. One elderly man after another disappeared, and Eleanor, as if by some dark magic, would always find some of their personal belongings. A pair of reading glasses, a favorite pipe, a tattered handkerchief. She always found the object near her property, and she always handed it over with the same pained expression, a sorrow etched deeply on her face. The police were baffled. There were no signs of a struggle, no apparent motive for these disappearances. And the most obvious connection was a beloved old woman, an idea that was simply ridiculous and unthinkable to them.
My grandfather, a widower who lived alone on the outskirts of town, started getting regular visits from Eleanor. She would bring him her famous gingerbread cookies and stay to chat with him for hours, her voice a soothing murmur. I used to visit him often, and every time I entered the house, I felt a strange, unsettling sense of unease. The air was heavy, and a sweet, spicy smell, one that wasn't from gingerbread cookies, hung persistently in the air. My grandfather was delighted, of course. "Eleanor is an angel," he would tell me, his eyes full of warmth. I believed him too for a time, but the instinct in my gut told me otherwise, a persistent whisper of doubt. The last time I saw my grandfather alive was on a Tuesday afternoon. I had gone to his house and found him chatting happily with Eleanor, their laughter echoing softly through the rooms. She was about to leave. She looked at me with those kind, crinkled eyes. But for an instant, just a fleeting second, I saw something in them. Something cold and calculating. A gaze that did not belong to a loving grandma. It was only a second, barely perceptible, but it chilled me to the bone, a premonition of darkness. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying Eleanor's chilling look and that strange, pervasive smell. The next day, a gnawing fear drove me to action. I went to my grandfather's house, but it was empty, a silent testament to his absence. There was no trace of him. The car was in the garage, his phone on the table, everything in its place, yet he was gone. And the sweet smell, that smell I now associated with impending danger, was stronger than ever, a suffocating presence. There was no other choice. I ran to Eleanor's house, my heart pounding in my chest. I had to see her. I had to confront the terrifying feeling that the monster we were all looking for was the most beloved woman in town. When I arrived, I found her in the backyard, calmly watering her vibrant flowers. When she saw me, her smile was the same as always, warm and welcoming. I asked her about my grandfather, my voice trembling, and she assured me she knew nothing, her eyes holding a feigned innocence. But her voice had a subtle tone, a barely perceptible shift that made me doubt every word. I pretended to leave, making a show of walking down her driveway, but then I quickly hid behind a weathered shed, my breath catching in my throat. I watched her go inside, and in that moment alone, my heart screamed at me to search, to find answers. I pushed the back door, which, surprisingly, was unlocked, and slipped inside. The sweet smell was overwhelming now, thick in the air, a sickly, sweet perfume. I searched frantically on the first floor, my eyes darting, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. Then, my gaze fell upon the basement. A small, almost hidden door had a heavy padlock, glinting ominously in the dim light. My gut screamed at me to run, but desperation for my grandfather made me force it open. What I saw in that basement will haunt me to my grave. It wasn't a slaughterhouse. It wasn't a bloody place. It was a small room, surprisingly clean, but in the center was a table with a tray, and on the tray, a hand. A hand. And it wasn't just any hand. It was my grandfather's hand, with the wedding ring he never took off. Next to it was a small perfume bottle with the same sweet, spicy smell I'd noticed earlier. Terror paralyzed me. Next to the hand was a note, in Eleanor's perfect handwriting. It read, "So you don't forget. A little souvenir." The door behind me swung open. It was Eleanor, her face no longer kind. Her eyes shone with a cold madness. She didn't say a word. She just looked at me with a wicked smile. She had been watching me the whole time. She had let me see what she wanted me to see. She was the monster they talked about. I managed to get out of there, running faster than I ever had in my life. The next day, the police stormed Eleanor's house. They found the remains of more than a dozen men in the basement, all in jars, with a souvenir note next to each one. They discovered that Eleanor would poison them with an undetectable substance in their tea, dismember them, and keep their remains as mementos, as trophies of her own evil.
Eleanor was found guilty of all the crimes, but at the trial, she maintained that calm smile as if none of what she had done were a sin. She never apologized, never showed remorse. And that's the most terrifying part of the story. Evil doesn't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes it offers you a gingerbread cookie and a sweet smile. And the memory of that smell, that sweet and spicy smell that floated in my grandfather's house, haunts me to this day. The next time someone offers you something, look at the gaze in their eyes, because sometimes the kindest person hides the deepest darkness. That was a chilling tale from the heart of Maine, reminding us that sometimes the most monstrous secrets hide in plain sight. Join us tomorrow on USA Myths and Legends as we travel further north to explore another captivating story from the state of Maine. Until then, sleep tight if you can.